Welcome into Texans Today, everybody. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and this is my instant reaction from the Texans' beatdown of the New York Giants in preseason week numero dos. They won 28-10 over the G-Men, and the Texans' defense had some splash plays. They looked really excellent today. Tim Boyle, the top passer for the Texans, 10 of 15, 94 yards. No touchdowns, no interceptions. J.J. Taylor looked really good before actually having to exit the game, going under a concussion protocol. But before that, he looked fantastic. And we finally got our John Metchie game. We finally saw Metchie show out in the preseason. We've been waiting for it. We've been really hoping that he can turn it on. And he did that up against the New York Giants. 6 receptions, 68 yards, and a touchdown. Danny Dimes, Daniel Jones. And this is important to note. The Giants played their starters for the entire first half. The Texans, they only played their starters the first quarter. So the Texans, secondary lineup, their backups, their depth chart was still dominating the New York Giants. That's how good this Texans team is. Daniel Jones had 2 picks on the day. Should have had 3 picks because on the very first play of the game, Stingley Jr. dropped an easy interception. He made up for it later by getting another pick, but this Texans defense, D'Amico Ryans, Matt Burke, had these guys ready to go. So there's a lot of guys that you can name here. I'll tell you who mine is in just a second, but who is the best player for the Texans today from this game? Let me know down in the comment section. You can hit with the YouTube ad break. Perfect timing. Go down and answer today's pinned question. My answer to this question coming up in just one moment. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say Jalen Pitre was the best player for the Houston Texans. Yes, the offense looked really well, 5.3 yards per play. But, what the defense was able to do against this Giants offense was spectacular. They had the clamps on them. And we've been talking a lot about, Pitre playing in the slot, Pitre playing, in that, kind of box that the Texans want him to play in, not being a deep safety, but being a more guy who plays in the slot, plays in the box, plays up close against the line of scrimmage. And he had multiple tackles for loss, and he picked off this guy right here, Daniel Jones, for the first touchdown of today's game. So, Daniel Jones, we see the numbers, 11 of 18, 138, 2 interceptions. One of those he threw right to Jalen Pitre, and he scored a touchdown in today's game. His, tenacity on the field, his motor, you could tell he was playing so hard during this game. Jalen Pitre was my player of the game, and Daniel Jones, the Giants are going to have a lot of, critics, a lot of questions after this season, because even though he's not clean-shaven anymore and he has a beard, it's still the same sucky Daniel Jones that we remember. And this Giants offense did not look good. Now, I will say former Texans running back Devin Singletary, who signed with the Giants this offseason, he had a decent game. He looked pretty good. He had their lone touchdown on the day, but passing 21 of 37, 205 yards, rushing 22 carries for 74 yards. They had 5 turnovers on the day. Time of possession, a little bit over 25 minutes. The Texans dominated every facet of today's football game, and I just can't wait for the regular season. I cannot wait for this team to show out, and I cannot wait to see how this Texans team plays. Now, in just a moment, I'm going to be going over, more individual stats, some more guys. I'll tell you how C.J. Stroud and those guys did on the first drive of the game, and I'll kind of break down more about individual players throughout this game. But I couldn't do today's show if it wasn't for our amazing sponsors over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get on the daily action with your friends and become part of the Prize Picks community today. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinion into real money all season long. These are my season-long projections for Prize Picks during the preseason. They won't have single game because obviously we don't know how long these guys are going to be playing. But I put this in a couple weeks ago, and I think this is like taking candy from a baby. 26.5 touchdown passes for C.J. Stroud. Yeah, I'm projecting more than that. Saquon Barkley, 1,055.5 rushing yards. Give me the more on that as well. And this one's easy money. Danielle Hunter, 10.75 sacks on the year. Give me the more. You can use my picks or make your own picks over at Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That is code CLNS on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks. Run your game. And as I mentioned, starters only played in the first quarter for the Houston Texans. And CJ Stroud and company, they looked really good. But on their first drive, they were able to get down inside the 10-yard line. Wasn't able to punch it in. They went for it on 4th and goal from like the 7-8-yard line, which in a normal game, they would have just went ahead and kicked the field goal. But it's preseason, so you really want to see how your guys handle certain situations. And a 4th and goal at the 6 or 7-yard line, DeMeco Ryans and staff said, hey, we want to test our guys. We want to see how they do. They weren't able to punch it in. And then on their second drive, they were driving the ball down the field. And then the end of the first quarter, they got pulled. So they were in the middle of driving the ball down. So we didn't get to see them finish that drive either. But it's the preseason. You want to play it safe. You want to rather be safe than sorry in these games. So they took C.J. Stroud out. Then they inserted Case Keenum. Also, another guy who played at the quarterback position looked kind of good, Tim Boyle. Davis Mills did not play today due to suffering a rib injury up against the Pittsburgh Steelers last weekend. So he was able to step in kind of towards the end of the third quarter, fourth quarter. Case Keenum also played a little bit, looked good, had a touchdown pass to John Metchie, who we'll talk more about him in just a moment. But the Texans quarterbacks definitely looked much better than the Giants quarterbacks. And as I said, this isn't a Giants channel. We're talking Texans football, but the guys in New York have a lot of decisions to make when it comes to Danny Dimes here. If you could even call it, maybe Danny Pennies is more accurate because the dude was not slinging it at all. He looked awful in today's game, if you ask me. Could have had easily 3 or 4 interceptions. Tommy DeVito didn't look that much better. The Italian man from New York who rise to fame last year in his short stint with the Giants, I don't know if he makes the team either. Did not look good at all, which we have to change that in just a second, Jack. But I really do think the Texans defense took over this game. The offense looked pretty good. The running backs looked really good for the Texans, but this defense absolutely took over. I want you to go down and grade the Texans' offensive performance against the Giants, A, B, C, D, or F. I'm giving it a B+ because the backups, the other guys, they were able to get in. It would be an easy A for me if the Texans were able to punch it in, if they were able to score on that first drive, but they weren't able to. They went 4 and out inside the red zone. Give me your grade, A, B, C, D, or F, in the comments below. Now, the Texans had some backups who really showed out, and as I mentioned at the top of the show, we finally got it, the John Metchie game. And if you could, go down and like this video. Go spam some 8s for John Metchie because his story is unbelievable. When he scored, it was really a heartwarming moment, in my opinion, because to think about all this dude has been through. 2nd-round pick out of Alabama, finally realizing his dreams to go into the NFL. Then he has to battle leukemia, has to beat off cancer, and is able to do so. Comes back last season. He's still struggling. He's opened up about his struggles with overcoming. He had to have chemo for that year that he was battling leukemia. And he talked about, the lasting impacts that's had on him and his ability to recover faster, his ability to stay on the field. And John Metchie, him scoring was an absolutely beautiful sight, in my opinion. It really shows somebody who has been fighting for the past 2 years and is finally getting to that, mountaintop over that hill that I really believe that he deserves to get over. Big ups to John Metchie and everything he's been through. He's an absolute warrior in my book. An absolute warrior in my book. Another guy who I thought played really good. And it gets me into another conversation on today's show. J.J. Taylor. He looked really good before having to exit the game. The booth they called down because he took a hit to the helmet. So he was under concussion protocol, had to sit the rest of the game. But he looked awesome. J.J. Taylor, I mentioned him last week as somebody who needs to step up if he wants to make this team. He's been stepping up. He looks good in special teams. He looks good as a 3rd down back, has a really good burst. He looks fantastic. Cam Akers looked really good as well. He had a run where he stopped on a dime, turned the other way, and it was almost Arian Foster-esque of how it was a stretch run to the left. He's able to stop, completely change direction, and move to the right and get the first down. He looked great in this game. Brish Brooks had a couple of TDs as well. Had a short touchdown gain, 7 to 8 yards that he busted in, and then had a 15-yard run for a touchdown as well. British Brooks looked fantastic. And that brings me to this point. Dameon Pioerce, I don't know. I still think he's the RB2. I don't think his roster spot is up for grabs at this moment. But if you're the Houston Texans, it's something that you have to talk about. It's something that is at least in a discussion during this last week of training camp and into the preseason. Reminder, cutdown day is August 27th, and we'll be breaking everything down here on the channel for you. But really, when it comes to this running back room, Nick Caserio, D'Amico Ryans, they're going to have a tough time deciding who they keep and who they, cut and let go onto the waiver wire before the season starts. Because you ask me right now, during the preseason, Dameon Pioerce, he didn't look as good as the other running backs did today. I know he's going up against the starters, up against the New York Giants. He had a less amount of snaps than the other guys as well, but when he touches the ball, it's just not that same pop. It's not that same, juice that you get from a guy like J.J. Taylor, from British Brooks, from Jawar Jordan, who had a pretty good game as well today, had a couple of nice receptions, had some good runs on the day as well. If he didn't step out of bounds, would have had another 20 yards. But these running backs look really good. And I know we have to take into account that they're going up against lesser competition. But at the same time, they do look really good. So it's going to make it at least a conversation. I know we don't see everything. We don't hear about everything in the meeting rooms, in practice, in individual drills and stuff like that, and how the coaching staff views this room. But Dameon Pioerce, it's a make or break year for this kid. His third year out of Florida. I really hope that he can turn the juice on and can give us something. I'll be breaking down this position battle and all the position battles around the Houston Texans this week. Another reason why you got to hit that sub button and make sure you never miss a moment of Texans content. I'm bringing it to you here. We're almost to 16,000 subscribers. So if you made it to the end of the video, why not go down and hit that sub button for free Texans content all year long?